Okay. All right. We are live and ready to go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sassquad Trail Runners RunVenture Facebook Live series. My name is Kim Levinsky. I'm the owner and race director for Sassquad Trail Runners in New Jersey. Tonight, I will be interviewing the wonderful Rebecca Fitzgerald. She is here with me now. She is a NJ State Park superintendent. So before we jump into the interview, I'm going to share a few updates on what's going on in the wonderful world of Sasquatch trail running. So thank you to everyone who came out to the Midnight Squatchapalooza this past weekend. We had over 150 runners and hikers of all ages and paces join us for the weekend. I hope all of you who came out are recovered. I think I'm finally caught up on sleep. Personally, I want to say a huge thank you. I have been blown away by the amount of positive emails, messages, social media posts from you guys. It's just been very overwhelming with the positive feedback that we've gotten. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Next up for us, we are headed to the South Mountain Reservation in Millburn, New Jersey for the Fat Sass Switchback Challenge. And that is less than 2 weeks away. It is on July 10th. So this is the complete opposite of the Midnight Squatchapalooza that just happened. So this course at the Switchback Challenge is 1 mile long. It climbs 300 feet up and then goes 300 feet down, all in the course of 1 mile. So you want to try to complete as many loops as you can in the allotted time of either 6 hours or 3 hours, or you can do 3 loops for a 5K. You can register for that on ultrasignup.com. Everyone coming is going to bring a food donation, and that's given to our friends at Livingston Neighbors Helping Neighbors. So this local charity gets our food donations directly in the hands of local families who are in need of help. So since we started our race series in 2018, we have donated several truckloads, literally truckloads of food to them. And that is all because of you guys coming out to the races. So thank you for helping us support them. And just know that your donation is going right into the hands of families who need the assistance. So after the Switchback Challenge, we are heading up to Harriman State Park in Tuxedo, New York for our first ever New York State race. That is on July 31st, and we are hosting a trail half marathon and a 7-miler. This event is sold out. It sold out in less than 3 weeks. I will tell you though, Don Weiss and myself are working to increase the capacity a little bit so we can get some more runners and hikers to join us. So I'd encourage you to stick your name on the wait list if you haven't gotten in. You can also do that on ultrasignup.com. So we are co-hosting that event with our friends at the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and we are raising funds for their current project, which is to rebuild the historic Ramapo Dunderberg Trail. And we're using that trail for our race. So it's very cool that we can give back to them financially to help them complete that project. All right, so for our interview series, we are rocking and rolling this summer. On July 14th, that's our next one, we are sitting down with sports dietitian Dina Griffin, aka the nutrition mechanic, is going to be joining us. So plan on coming to that virtually. Bring all of your nutrition and hydration questions for Dina. The next week after that, on July 21st, we're going to sit down with James Leitner. If you've been following our interviews for the past year, he's been on a couple of times. He's a good friend to Sasquatch Trail Running. He is the founder of his nonprofit called Mission Clean Water. So James is also a local race director, and like us, he's using the platform of trail running to help people, which our missions align so well. So we are so proud to sponsor him and his mission at Mission Clean Water. So he has a 24-hour event that's happening on July 24th at Tamaquas Park in Westfield. And that's going to fund clean drinking water projects around the world. He's also doing a personal endurance challenge, get this, of completing a marathon a day for 14 days in a row while carrying 45 pounds of water. Bananas, right? So you don't want to miss our interview with him on July 21st. The week after that, July 28th, we're going to be interviewing the one and only Don Weiss from the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. I mentioned him before. He has been my right-hand man with organizing the Harriman Big Bear Squatch Race. And he does a lot of fundraising for the Trail Conference, and he's become a really good friend to Sasquatch Trail Running. So you can learn more about the rest of our events for 2021 on our website, which is sasquadtrailrunning.com. Okay, so the reason you are all here, Rebecca Fitzgerald. Rebecca is a New Jersey State Park Superintendent, like I mentioned, for High Point State Park, and she's also overseeing Stoke State Forest. We have events at Stoke State Forest throughout the year. We just were there recently for the Thunder Chicken Squatch, and she got to run that race, which was very fun to have her as a participant. And I'm sure maybe we'll hear some good stories from that because she has some good stories from that race.
I do.
So we're going to hear the ins and outs of New Jersey State Parks, as well as her trail running and hiking stories. If you know Rebecca at all, she has one of the best senses of humor, and her social media is so great. It's so funny. So I'd encourage you to follow her on Facebook, Instagram, if you don't already. So I'm so excited to talk with Rebecca tonight and hear her story. As you're listening, please drop your questions in the live chat, and we will hit them as the night goes on. We already received several questions today through Facebook, and I have those ready to go here in my notes. So, Rebecca.
Hi, Kim,
Thank you so
and
much
everyone.
for joining us.
This is great. It's so great. I was so excited when you asked. And at first I thought, I don't really have a lot of like interesting things to talk about from running. And you said, I want to hear about your job. So I was like, you're right. I think I can do that. So
yes,
it's great to be here.
Oh my goodness. I know we could spend probably hours talking about stories from your job. Probably in this last week alone, I'm sure you have a lot of stories.
Oh yeah, definitely. This today, just today.
I
could run down my day for you and you would not believe it, I don't think so.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's jump in, just learn a little bit more about who you are as a person. We got to hear the backstory of, where did this passion start for running, hiking, nature, education, all that? So I'm going to let you pick a starting point in that story and we'll go from there.
Let's see. Well, I was born on February 5th. No, I'm joking.
It was a Tuesday.
So I really was just like had a wonderful childhood growing up in Sussex County in New Jersey. And Franklin Borough, which is about 30 minutes south of where High Point State Park is located. I grew up in the woods. We were in a nice a cul-de-sac neighborhood surrounded by the forest, and we were always running around in the woods. We had bike trails. We were running around all the time. We had so many kids on the the street that I grew up on Hemlock Drive, and we were out of that door first thing in the morning, and we did not come home until my mom actually had a dinner bell that she would ring, a legit bell.
Yes.
And she would start to ring that, and everybody knew that meant it was time. The Heath kids had to go home. So we were just always outside. And I guess that's probably where it started. And I remember like never really realizing that these areas belong to people, like running through the woods. It's someone's property, but we never thought of it that way. And it was just such a great experience. And then when I was maybe 13 or 14, my oldest brother, Tommy John, was driving. He had his license and he said, come with me. We're going to go hiking. And he drove to High Point State Park. And we parked where I'm thinking right now is sort of at the entrance to our Cedar Swamp natural area. But he pulled off to the side of the road and we just bushwhacked straight up the mountain to the monument. We did not follow any marked trails. P.S. Please don't do that. Just straight up, getting cut by all the, we call them pricker bushes. Now I know what they are. They're, different invasive species and such, but
yes.
We ended up at the monument. I don't remember. I don't think the building was open. I don't think we went inside. At least I don't recall. And then we just walked right back down to his car. And I was like, I love this place. I want to work here one day. And a couple of years later, once I had my driver's license, I drove to the park. I asked, hey, do you have any jobs? And I got hired to collect the tolls at the toll booth.
So when you were there, you knew you wanted to work there.
I did. I just remember driving out and seeing the toll booth attendant and like, oh, hey, I wonder if I could I could do this job. I mean, it was about a 30-minute ride from where I lived. And I just kind of kept it in my head. And then once I was driving and able, I had all sorts of, I worked from the time that I was like, probably shouldn't have been working. I was probably too young to actually be working. I worked at a deli for many, many years. So I just always worked, and I always wanted to work. But I just kind of always had in the back of my head how I wanted to work at High Point State Park. So once I had a car and, gas money, drove up here, I remember asking the superintendent at the time, his name was John, if there were jobs, and he interviewed me on the spot and hired me to work on the toll. My first season working, I remember there was a couple of different job opportunities, and one of them would to be a state ranger, which are now known as our park police officers. And I remember thinking I didn't really necessarily want to take like the law enforcement route. And so I remember asking him, are there any female park superintendents? So this was in the early 90s. And at the time there were a couple, and I remember him talking to me about them. And so like then and there, I decided that's the job that I wanted. I went to Montclair State University, and they had an outdoor, it was called Recreation and Leisure Studies was the actual formal title. My father was not at all pleased with that as a major. He had could not understand what on earth I would do with such a major. And I said, I want to be a park superintendent one day. So graduated Montclair State, and I worked at High Point State Park all through college on breaks, and home for the summertime. I spent 1 year in the toll, and then I moved on to what's called a visitor service assistant position, which is more interacting with the public kind of out and around in the park. And then I graduated in 1996, and I worked for a couple of years for a town recreation department, Paramus Recreation, as a matter of fact. Was quite a ride. It was about an hour ride from where I lived, but it was in a recreation field. And I really thought I was going to have to wait a while before I got hired permanently as a park superintendent, because there's not many of the positions in the state. And it was only a couple of years out of, after I graduated, that some positions opened up, and I interviewed, and I was hired in 1999 as a park superintendent. So I only had to wait about 3 years after graduation, which I was just thrilled, because I really thought it would have been a lot longer than that.
Were you hired at High Point State Park, or was it another park?
I was hired at Ringwood State Park, of course, another like local spot for you that you enjoy. Northern Green State Forest is a part of Ringwood, Ramapo Mountain State Forest. So I started at Ringwood. Ringwood's a really complicated area. At the time, there was another superintendent, so I was hired sort of to assist him. And I spent a couple years assisting, and then he left. So I kind of moved into the lead position at Ringwood. And I was commuting at that time. I was living in Totowa Borough because I had got married. And my husband and I, he worked in Totowa. So we lived in Totowa, and it wasn't a terrible drive to Ringwood, but I knew that I always wanted to make it back to Sussex County to live. So we moved, and then it was about an hour and 15-minute ride for me to work every day. And I always wanted to return back to High Point, but there's only one park superintendent at High Point. So I had to wait for him to retire. It was the same superintendent who hired me as a seasonal employee, John. Yep. He was still here, and he retired in May of 2010. And that was my chance. And I was able to move. I mean, I absolutely loved Ringwood. Ringwood is an amazing place. The commute was really difficult, especially at the time I was raising a child, and it was a tough commute for me. So I was so happy to get the opportunity to come back to High Point, literally my backyard. I have a 12-minute commute to get here. Maybe it's like 14 minutes on the way here, because I have to go uphill, and I always say it's a little faster on the way, go downhill on the way home. And so that was 2010. So I spent 11 years at Ringwood, and now I'm in my 11th year here at High Point. So 22 years as a park superintendent. It doesn't seem like that at all. I feel like that's
a long time.
A long time. And then, combined with my seasonal time. It's about 26 years so far that I've been working in the park service. Yeah. Yep.
Is that typical for park employees to have a long career like that?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone you talk to, I mean, you know, when people retire, there's sometimes 30 years, 35 years of service, even more. Sometimes I look at these people and think, what, did you start when you were like 10? You know, because it seems like so many years, but 100%, probably 90%, 95% of our permanent employees have, you know, by the time they retire, it's 30 plus years.
I mean, it seems like you're on that trajectory as well. You seem very happy with your job. Is it something you want to stay in till retirement?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
You know, I could right now with my years of service and my age, I could retire in 8 years. Like that seems like a snap of a finger, but
right.
I don't know that I will, you know, as soon as I'm able to. Because I really do, like you said, right now I love what I do. I really love what I do. So I'm in no rush. At this point.
Okay, that's awesome. Let's hit one of the questions from Facebook that we put out. I think Joe's question has already been answered. It says, how does one get a job like yours? I think you touched on that, right?
Yeah, and I will mention it is, so every state is different, but in New Jersey, it is a civil service position. So there are degree requirements for my job, and I took a civil service exam. So I was on a list, and then once the job was posted to be hired into, then they go to the civil service list and interview people. So check out the State of New Jersey Civil Service Commission for information on all of the state, you know, positions that would kind of be covered under that.
Okay, there you go, Joe Brandine. There's your answer to that. Let's hit another question. I have to confess I asked this, but we need to get the backstory on it. Is the lake open?
The lake?
Why do people want to know that? Because there were a couple of people asking about it. Fill us in on that whole situation.
Is the lake open? So this started maybe it was about 3 years ago now. It was early April, and if I couldn't even begin to explain to anyone who doesn't work in a state park, what it is like working in a state park as you're kind of in the spring season leading up to your busy season. It is just insanity. It's insanity. We're just trying to get things taken care of and fixed, and things break down, and bringing our seasonal staff on board, and one thing after the other. So it happened to be a day when we were a little short staffed. So I was the only one in the office. So I was trying to do all of my responsibilities with, and also managing the phone. And it was early April, but we were getting, a heat. It was maybe like 70 degrees. We were going to get like a 70, 75 degree day. So multiple phone calls. Is the lake open? These were the calls. So it was just one after the other. And, the lake's not open until Memorial Day weekend, generally speaking, when we have our lifeguards on duty. And also the lake water probably at that point is like 50 degrees.
Yeah.
We're kind of high in an elevation here, and it's so really not ideal for swimming. So I just kind of did sort of a vent post on Facebook and Instagram, and I used the Snapchat filter with the wide mouth.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here come the phone calls. Is the lake open? And I go, no, with a big smile. So it was just really funny to everyone. I guess, people got a kick out of it. And I just started using that Snapchat filter oftentimes to answer that. So it seems that I've created this situation for myself. People want to know, is the lake open? And every time I get the public phone call, I just giggle in my head thinking about, if I could count how many times we get this question. So it's all in good fun, but right now, yes, the lake is open.
I love it. You created this kind of like online persona, fictional character of the lake, the lake king.
I've mentioned to some people, I would love to have that Snapchat filter in real life, just to kind of
flip it on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes, especially delivering bad news, it seems to just make it a little easier.
I love it. All right. Well, we've already got a question come in, and I'm going to expand this a little bit. This is from Beth Cunningham, who's a Sassquad regular. Hello, Beth. Beth says, hi, Rebecca. We had an issue in my favorite local county park where there was an aggressive bear, quote, incident involving hikers, and the park was closed. There was no other information given out about what happened. What kind of bear incident would cause you to close a park? That's a really good question. So what do you got?
That's a great question. I can't answer, officially. The New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife would certainly be the authority on that. However, within the New Jersey State Park Service, we do have a bear incident, like we have a management plan for people interacting with wildlife, specifically bears. And there's different categories that bears fall under. And so if they are considered a threat to humans, obviously, then that's a higher level category bear that would have to kind of be, there would be protocol to address that. So I don't know the specifics of that incident. I can share with you that, especially in both High Point and Stokes, we have campers. We have overnight use in our forests. We have people with food around and items with, scented items and such. So it's really important that we educate our visitors how to properly, act around the wildlife, because it's our fault if the bears are coming into areas where people are. It's because we're not doing the right thing. So we have really strict regulations with food cannot be left out on sites. Food gets kept in coolers. Coolers get blocked in vehicles. We don't allow coolers left out on campsites. Anything with a scent, make sure that it's not on a site. If we have folks who don't have a vehicle, we provide them with, bear canisters. So it would take a bear that is a threat to human life for us to have to take really extreme measures in the Park Service. So I don't know the specifics of that, but it's all about, if you go to the New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife website, njfishandwildlife.org, there's all sorts of information about bear safety and how to behave and how we can coexist. So definitely check that out.
That's perfect. And it leads great into another question we had from Facebook was, have you ever had a bear encounter on a trail run, and what was that first one like? And I know we had an incident at the Thunder Chicken Squatch, so maybe you want to chat about that, but what has been your experience with bears on the trails personally?
So, I see bears a lot, and I'm excited every single time. It's an exciting experience for me. I think they're beautiful animals. And used to seeing them, I guess. So it's not as startling to me to see them. It's more exciting. In our neighborhood, there's a big concern because some people don't necessarily manage their trash the way they should. So it could be common that there's just a bear walking through my front yard on the way to the neighbor's garbage. So generally speaking, I've never really been startled by a bear that's kind of jumped out, if I'm running. Usually I kind of see them from a distance so I can kind of stop and observe. During the Thunder Chicken trail run, I was running with my new friend, Kimmy. And we started, and Kim saw it first and she went, and we looked, and I swear to you, this bear was, it was huge. It was huge. I mean, I couldn't tell you the size, but I'm thinking the size of like a small Volkswagen almost. And it was from far away. I mean, the good news is he saw us and he took off. He wanted nothing to do with people, but we were so into it. It wasn't even quick enough. Like, he ran fast enough before I could even grab my phone to get a photo. And we were just kind of taking it in like, wow. And we're talking about it, and we're kind of going up sort of the steep part of the trail. And at that point we were walking, doing a quick water break. And then about a minute later, Kim looks at me and she says, I haven't seen any trail markers. And I went, oh, and I pulled up my Avenza map on my phone and I said, because we're off the trail right now. So yes, you're hearing it correctly. The park superintendent got lost on a very well-marked trail that Kim took the time to mark during the trail run. So at that point, we were able to get back on the trail. Luckily, I had my map, so we could figure it all out. And So but it was a big bear, and it was really exciting for Kim to see it. And so just, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is just to remain calm. Always stop running. You never, ever want to run from a bear, because bears can run very fast, 35 miles per hour, top speeds around there. Yeah, they can run really fast. So the most important thing is to stop and just kind of let them go along their way. Don't make them feel trapped, give them an escape route, make a lot of noise. For the most part, they should be moving. I was very excited to see this bear see us and just take off, because that is how a bear should be acting in a forested area. So yeah, he was big though.
I mean, you guys, you had me laughing pretty hard with, first you saw the bear and then you were lost.
We ended up in the campsites, and I think we had some campers offering us alcohol, and I was like, hey, tell them, oops, no, you're not allowed to have alcohol here. I'm the undercover park superintendent right now, running in a trail race, but yeah, it was good. It was good.
That's so great. Yeah. I had my first bear encounter ever just a couple of weeks ago, and people don't believe me when I say I've never seen a bear up until that point, because I run, and hike a lot of places where bears should be. But it was over in Vernon, and thankfully it was the same type of experience where there were two of them. They saw us, and then they just lumbered away and kept moving. And then the third one we saw did the same thing. Saw us from a distance and just went down the hill. So that was really nice.
Awesome. Yeah, they really are when you get a look at them, just really like such cool looking animals, I think. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I would love to ask this question. This was brought up on Facebook. I was planning on asking it anyway. Talking about this past year and what state parks have been like, because I know it's been crazy for the majority. We could say across the board for parks and rec around the state, not just us, but probably the country. But I know specifically in New Jersey, you guys have had some openings, some closings, packed parks, really busy. We were just chatting offline about camping at Stoke's is booked out for the summer. So let's talk about that. What has this past year been like for you as a superintendent and for your staff at High Point and Stoke's?
Wow. So, I guess like everyone, we were all sort of personally dealing with the pandemic, how it affects your home life, and if you have children and schools and everything else. And while at the same time continuing to manage our facilities, at first we were buildings shut down and bathroom facilities shut down. And this was early on when there was really no information as to, how to keep, things clean and keep people safe. And as that was happening, we saw this huge increase in visitation, just incredible, especially, it was March, right? When this whole thing first started. So as soon as those nice weather, the nice weather days came and everyone was home, people weren't at work, children weren't at school. So it was usually around 12 o'clock, 12:30, figure after lunch. And after that half day of Zoom school was done, we were just seeing just people everywhere, just out trying to escape and, get some fresh air. And it was really, really, it was unbelievable. And then of course it was unfortunate that everything shut down, in early April, I guess around April, first week of April, that we had to close our parks. And that was very, very difficult to do. First of all, physically it's difficult to do because most of our areas are just wide open areas. And then just kind of managing it. And, then while at the same time having to take all sorts of safety protocols for COVID, not being in the building at the same time as some other person and, making sure we're not sharing vehicles, and it was intense. I don't think, I don't think I didn't take a day off for probably for like a month, because it was just constant, meetings and discussions and planning, and then being at the park and making sure that, things were being taken care of. We can't just close buildings and walk away from them. We have facilities, we have systems that have to be checked, water treatment stuff, alarms and everything else that you can't just not be there for it. So, And then it was May 2nd, I think it was, that in 2020, that parks reopened. And, we saw this surge again of people. But my observance was people were respecting each other's boundaries, space. People just wanted to get out.
Right.
Picnic tables were closed. Buildings were still closed. I think at some point we opened one bathroom, but we could only open one because our cleaning requirements were so intense, hourly disinfecting. And so we couldn't open multiple bathrooms because we just simply didn't have the staff to help keep them for what our protocols were at the time. And just, a lot of first-time visitors, a lot of first-time users, some people who just wanted to put a blanket down and get some fresh air, and others who wanted to hike, and, parking lots filling to capacity so quickly, like we've never seen. And then we just didn't really know what was happening. And then we got the word, hey, you're going to have camping. You're going to open your campsites, and you're going to have swimming, you're going to provide lifeguards. So that was a challenge. But we did it. And we just kept going, and then fall came. And of course, things started to kind of be reeled in again. Sorry, there's somebody's calling the park at 8:30 at night.
You want to know if the lake is open.
It's open, I betcha. Fall, we kind of scaled things back again, and then spring, kind of reopening. And here we are pretty much fully open at this point. There's some restrictions on timing of certain facilities, but last year, I shared with you, I've been a park superintendent. This is my 22nd year, but last year was like the first year for me because we didn't know what to expect.
Right.
All of the traditional use and all of the traditional visitation. And, I used to be able to predict when we would fill to capacity or when things would be busy, that just all went completely out the window. It was like the first year, we had no idea how things were going to go. Here we are, kind of year 2, if we want to call it that. And it'll be very interesting to see how things go. We're certainly still seeing lots and lots of use, but not as intense at this point, numbers wise, because I think people have more things to do now. More things have opened up. People can now travel again. They can go to other states. So it'll just be interesting to see how the rest of the summer goes. But it's been incredible. But in times of crisis for me or in difficult times in my life, I like to feel like I'm helping. I like to feel like I'm useful, and I like to be busy probably. So I don't really focus on the reality of how things are.
Yeah.
So it was good for me for that, just feeling like I was helping, feeling like I was useful to our staff, to our visitors, to the resource, so that's sort of my take. That's my pandemic year in review.
What a year. I know everybody's had a year, but I can't even imagine working at one of the state parks.
But it's just incredible, and luckily too, we had some people who had people close to them who passed away, who got sick. We didn't, luckily, we had some isolated cases personally between the parks that I manage and the staff that I manage, some isolated cases of actually people, being sick. We only had a couple of situations where we had to have staff quarantine. So of course that was helpful because we didn't have to, alter our operations, but luckily everyone stayed healthy and, relatively speaking, compared to really what was going on in the world. So we're very, very happy about that, of course.
Right. We've got a comment in the live chat, and then I have a couple of things to say about what you just did. Maria Logan, I know that she shared with me that she used to work for you, and I don't know if you remember her, but she's from originally your neck of the woods. She now lives down in Virginia, but she said she was once an employee for you.
I'm so good about our names. I wonder if she has a maiden name. If I saw a picture.
Oh, yes, she is married. Oh, I can picture it on Facebook, but I can't remember it now. Yeah. I'll follow up with you. But she said good luck this weekend, so I'm sure she's referring to 4th of July.
Yeah. It's funny because thank you, Maria, and
Roy's Roiz. She just commented.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lifeguard, Maria, lifeguard.
Yep, nailed it.
Yep, at Ringwood, Shepherd Lake. Yeah. 4th of July weekend. Oh man. The good news is the 4th of July is on a Sunday. So when the 4th is on a Saturday is a little rough because then Sunday is also a double whammy. But when the actual 4th itself is on a weekend, that means that's like one less day of craziness for us because it's crazy anyway on a weekend, you know? So we're sort of happy about that. But the weather's looking good because it's going to be cooler. These really hot days are so difficult on our staff. You know, preparing, you know, our mowing crew has been out in this heat and our maintenance staff, you know, getting things up and running. And our lifeguards just kind of sitting out in the sweltering heat has been tough, but it looks like things will be a little cooler. So yeah, you know, we will fill to capacity earlier than we ever do on the 4th of July. It's just, it is that. So anyone who works in the Park Service would understand that. Also, for over 22 years, really probably 25 because even as a seasonal, I have never been, you know, I get invited to Memorial Day gatherings. I get invited to 4th of July gatherings, and it's always very nice. And usually it's family and friends inviting me saying, well, you know, you can stop by after work. We understand, you know, we understand.
Oh, yeah, right.
Like ask my husband and my son will tell you, I mean, I am just cooked by the end of it. I am just home, you know, just exhausted and, you know, just not, no thanks. I'll wait till I'm retired to attend those festivities. Yeah.
I understand. That's like when I get invited out after one of the Sassquad races, I just say, guys, I can't. I gotta just go be by myself for a little bit to recharge.
Exactly.
I wanted to make a couple comments on, you know, you were just talking about this past year. First of all, the restrooms at Stoke State Forest, you could eat off of the floor. They are so clean. And I've told you that before. I've told your staff that because we've had a couple events there this past year and you guys keep it so clean. So kudos to you. That's leadership top down.
Thank you. And it was funny because as the undercover boss, you know, because I did the run, I thought the exact same thing. You know, I went in there and I was like, wow, these bathrooms are amazing. And we had 2 brand new seasonals working that weekend, Josh and Sierra. And, you know, I was like, yeah, they're on it. So we definitely, and I had a lot of just my own experience. And then you let me know and a couple of the other runners, like, oh, the bathrooms are so clean. So thank you. You know, a lot of times we hear the complaints. People are more likely to complain, right, than they are to give a compliment. We love the compliments and we certainly share them with anyone who might be responsible for it. So thank you.
Well, you deserve it. And I can attest that it wasn't just because of race day, because I had been there, you know, prior to in the season and it was just spotless. Like we could set up an aid station there. Not that we could. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is just a shout out to you, and I think it really speaks to your passion for your job, was you reached out to me directly, literally I think it was probably the day or the day after that you guys were given approval to start accepting special event permits. And I so appreciate that. I know I've told you that before, but I want to say online for everybody to hear, like you did not have to go out of your way to let me know, because we were in the same boat, you know, as race directors. We're trying to figure out like, okay, what's this park doing today? What's this county? What's the state doing? And you're getting all different answers. And I know you guys were you're flying on this, you know, on the go as well, trying to be flexible. So I just wanted to say you did not have to do that, but you went out of your way. And that's how we got in to do the Thunder Chicken, was you let us know like, okay, hey, just so you know, we're now accepting permits. And I so appreciated that.
You're welcome so much. And I think also it was kind of cool, not whatever cool, but so your event, the double squatch at Stokes in 2020 was our last official event, especially if you remember, that's like the numbers, right? We were looking at what's going to be the capacity, because there was going to be an executive order. And I think we just made it.
Yes.
So I had done a half marathon the weekend prior. I did the Celebrate Life half marathon in New York. So I kind of did that event. And then I did the double squatch, only one day, but 3 hours one day. Well, you know, I'll work up to that 2 6 hours.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will.
I will. But so it was I agree with you. It was just like this relief. And I remember a couple of like running with a couple of our friends. My was running with Sue and Sean Meyer in the beginning, and Sue is a school teacher. And we were kind of having that conversation like, oh, it looks like maybe schools aren't going to open, you know? And so I'm so happy we got your event, and then we shut down completely and we weren't accepting special use permits. And even last summer, even though our parks were open, we just didn't have the capacity at that point to oversee these events, right. Because of staffing and just increased use. And so what was really cool was that the Thunder Chicken was the first official event back at Stokes in 2021. And that I also got to participate in it. So that was really cool. So I thank you so much for taking, you know, putting those events on for folks, especially as you were able to kind of put these events on with limited use and phase starts. I know so many people appreciated that because it gave them some, you know, a little something else to look forward to and to motivate them to get out and train. So thank you. And Sassquad Trail Running.
Hey, it's all Sasquatch, right? He makes the magic happen.
Yeah.
All right. In the spirit of wildlife creatures, let's talk about Norman. Who is Norman? What's the backstory? Tell the world about Norman.
Norman is whoever you want Norman to be. So for me, Norman is any wild creature of any type, reptile, amphibian, mammal, that I might encounter either at work or in my personal time, running or hiking. And Norman actually comes from, and it's so funny because my son, he's 18 now. And so he kind of always knew the Norman thing, but he never knew where it came from either. So we were, I think we were picking him up from college, and we were in kind of the hotel watching, and City Slickers came on. So if anyone knows City Slickers, there's the scene where the cow starts to give birth and Billy Crystal like assists, and the baby calf comes out and he says, Norman. And so like that name just always stuck with me from when I first saw that movie, probably when I was in high school. Right. And just, I always called in my head. And then as social media picked up on social media, and it just kind of picked up. So Norman can be male, female, neither, there's no attribute to Norman. So Norman's just been my thing. And I love Norman, no matter who it is. Red F's, bears, snakes, turtles. So recently I got to see, a wood turtle, which was really exciting for me. And of course that was Norman, the wood turtle. So Norman, that's who Norman is to me, but Norman can be whatever anyone wants Norman to be.
There you go. There's the story behind Norman. When I first met you, we connected on social media. I was like, who is this Norman? And why are there so many Normans? And then I realized, every animal she takes a picture of is Norman.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yes. We have some people commenting. Rachel Wallace just says Norman in all capital letters.
Rachel Wallace happens to be my twin sister. So she has followed the Normans throughout the years. So
that's so great.
Thanks for watching, Rach.
I love it. Well, okay, if you are watching, feel free to drop your questions in the chat right now. We're getting down to almost the home stretch here. So Rebecca, what would you say have you had like a really crazy animal encounter, either as a superintendent or just a park user in general? Is there anything wild that's happened? I mean, we had the bear at Thunder Chicken, right?
Yeah. So as far as wild, well, there is it wasn't really that wild, but at the time it was, and this is kind of a funny story. I was driving between High Point and Stokes a couple of years ago. I was in one of the state vehicles, and I came across, there was this little tiny raccoon in the road, like this little baby raccoon kind of crossing one of our internal park roads. And I thought, I was just kind of a little worried. I wanted to make sure that he didn't get hit or anything. P.S. His name was Norman.
Right.
Yes, of course. Previous information. So I started to open the door and this little baby raccoon just like like hissed at me and just kind of like fell over on the ground, which of course was just like, but I freaked out and like jumped in the truck and I closed the door. I was like, oh my God, is it rabid? What's happening? I don't know what's happening here. And then it just kind of disappeared. But I wasn't sure if it went under the truck that I was driving.
Oh boy.
I didn't want to run Norman over, but I was also like freaked out that he was going to try to like come into the vehicle, which, this does not happen. People, I watched too many, Disney movies, I guess, from a kid, from when I was a kid. And then I remember like driving away, and then I actually called it in to our park police dispatch number. Like, there might be a rabid raccoon, not really sure. But then I was actually like freaked out that it was somewhere under the truck. Like,
oh my gosh.
Kind of like running away. And meanwhile, I'm the park superintendent. I'm the one who's supposed to keep everyone,
right.
So I called our maintenance supervisor, Chris, here at High Point, and I told him the story, and I said, I'm just parking this truck and I'm like walking away from it. And maybe somebody wants to check it. And of course there was in the end, the raccoon, I just think kind of wandered off. Park police showed up, couldn't find it anywhere. And so I feel like that's just like, that's what comes to mind is sort of the craziest one. It really wasn't crazy. I've seen some cool things. I had the opportunity to see like freshly born rattlesnakes,
Wow.
Yeah, neonate rattlesnakes, like these amazing tiny little really beautiful snakes. That was a really, really cool, unique opportunity for me. So yeah, I don't know. I could go on and on. You do want to talk a little bit about Sasquatch if you would like. Really briefly, I've not had any personal encounters myself. We do have lots of park visitors who will share stories, but Finding Bigfoot did film an episode in High Point and Stokes back in maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago.
Get out.
Yep. So they did a New Jersey episode. They filmed in High Point and Stokes. Interestingly enough, Bobcat Goldthwait was a part of the episode. He's actually a big like Sasquatch guy.
Right.
And not Sassquad. He's not a trail runner. He's Sassquatch. Right.
We won't hold it against him.
But I knew about Finding Bigfoot. I knew about the show, but I didn't really watch it regularly. But they came to film in the park and it was a weeknight. And my husband was working. My husband was a police officer at the time. He's now retired. And so my son, maybe he was about 8 at the time. So it was maybe 8 or 9. And so he came with me, and one of our park employees, who was just like a huge Finding Bigfoot fan, right, he was there because we needed to have like staff to help close roads they were filming and stuff. So anyway, like our park employee was really excited. I'm going to say Jason, he was just really excited and to like meet them and meet the characters. And then so my son Liam comes up and they said, and he gets out of the truck and they're like, and the head guy Matt says, hey, so are you a big fan? And Liam goes, no. I was like, no, you're supposed to say yes. You're supposed to say yes. But for me, it was more exciting to meet Bobcat Goldthwait, however you say his name, Bobcat.
Bob.
Just from growing up, I knew his comedy and like his movies. You're young, but look him up. Look up some of his comedy. Just from growing up, I knew it. So that was kind of exciting. They researched, Bigfoot in Sussex County. They did claim to have heard a Bigfoot call back to them on one of the properties in High Point. And I said, oh, that's so exciting. Is that going to be on the show? And they said, well, no, we weren't recording at the time that we heard.
Darn.
So. But so that was really cool. That was kind of a really cool.
I love that.
I mean, when I was at Ringwood, The Sopranos recorded at Ringwood. So like, there's been like some of these film shoots that are pretty cool. And then, the parks end up in TV shows and movies and stuff. So yeah.
I love that. Well, I know that Sussex County is Bigfoot country because I connected with a guy who has, I guess it's his company. It's called In the Shadow of Big Red Eye, and it's based out of Sussex County, and they do actual Bigfoot hunts.
Yes. Yes. Big red eye. There have been some sightings of big red eye in High Point many, years, many years ago, decades ago, maybe. But again, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Right.
Since I have not personally encountered Bigfoot. But we do. Yeah, exactly. So,
I love it. Well, we could talk about Sasquatch all night, but I want to hit another question. We'll go a little deeper here. You've been the superintendent now for over 20 years. You've been in the parks department. Why? Why do you love it? Why are you so passionate about it? You are. Obviously, I mean, your love for the job and passion is very evident. So tell us why. Why do you love your job so much? Why do you stay in it? Why are you planning on staying until retirement? The people want to know, Rebecca.
Well, I think my husband might say it's because I like to be, because I'm a control freak. Okay. I prefer to say, I like to be a leader. But I definitely like to be, to kind of manage things. I that's definitely part of it, but not, that might've been the initial part of it. It is like, it's long hours. It's like I'm working when everyone else is having fun, weekends and holidays during the summer. I remember when I first started the job thinking like, wow. And it really became much more difficult for me when I had my son a few years after being hired, because now it's like, raising a child, being a mom, but having like these unconventional work hours, working weekends and holidays. There's no childcare on weekends. Luckily, we had family members that helped us out because my husband was a police officer. So he was also working weekends and holidays, so like, there's sometimes I think like, wow, how did I get through it? And I will probably always stay in a field area in my career because, first of all, the staff just really motivate me. Like the permanent staff, we're always here. And then in the off season, we're kind of like these really small numbers. So there's a bond, because you work so closely with these people. And many of them were seasonal employees. Many of us worked together here 20 years ago, and we're still working together today. Or in the case of one of our employees, I worked with his mother 20 years ago, and now he's working with us today, so there's these bonds with the permanent staff. Our seasonal staff who, a lot of times in the spring and summers when they come back and oftentimes return year after year. And it always gets me excited again. So even maybe I'm thinking like, oh, I don't think I can do this again. I don't think I have another summer in me. But then I just get so inspired and excited by our seasonal staff and then new ones. And then when we hire new staff, it's just kind of like telling them about the park all over again. So that is such like a big motivator for me. And I said, I'll always be in a field area because seeing our visitors just being here and enjoying and realizing like what we're doing is making a difference for them. I think that's such a huge part of it. And of course, we're also protecting a resource. So like we're providing these places for people to come, but there's also this feeling that protecting these places for for my children's grandchildren to hopefully also be able to come to. So I don't know. I guess that's maybe that in a nutshell. I sleep really well at night, if you could imagine, just because like, I'm just kind of always on the go. But I don't know. I just love it. Just definitely from, it's just like this. I really do. I mean, there have been some really difficult days in my career over the years. There's been some tragedies, that we've had to, experience. So there's been some really tough days, but just, it always kind of comes back to, me absolutely just loving it for just the people, the place. I mean, look, I'm in the middle, my office, the view from my office is this beautiful scenery and, so how could you go wrong with that?
I love that. That was a stellar answer, Rebecca. That was great. Your sister says, you should write a book, 500,364 and a half reasons why I love my job.
Well, I think I could do a spoken word book. I think I'll talk, but someone's got to write it for me. So, yeah. Thanks, Rach. Yeah.
All right, we've got two questions. This will probably wrap it up. These are both coming from Michael Machetta. First one is, does the New Jersey Devil ever visit from the Pine Barrens? And then he wants to know, what is a typical day like? Which that's a really good question, and I'm excited for the answer.
So I have yet to meet the Jersey Devil. So if he or she has visited, I have not been. It's maybe been on my day off. So we'll have to follow up on that one. Someone should maybe escort or invite. Maybe maybe Bigfoot can invite the Jersey Devil.
He could be the ambassador, right?
He could be the ambassador, yeah. So that would be fantastic. And what is a typical day like? I really am not even joking when I say there isn't a typical day. Yeah. There just isn't. Like I was thinking if I shared with you last Sunday, I always, so I do run, so I always try to get that done in the morning. I get my workout done early because there's just no way it's going to happen later. Right. Because a lot of times I'm here late. And in the summertime, like my morning will start. We just reopened the interior of the monument, which I'm really excited about. 291 steps. It's our New Jersey Veterans Memorial. People can, come and visit. I can tend to be sort of obsessive about things. So I set this goal that every day the monument is open and I'm working, I do climb those 291 steps. So on Sunday, Saturday morning, I climbed the steps to the monument, and then and then I finish, and then I go check in with the lifeguards at the beach, and then and then we have a phone call because the credit card machine isn't working at the toll booth. So like I run and try to fix that, and then there's a call that we have an Appalachian Trail through hiker who's experiencing some issues and is like maybe getting into some sugar issues with his diabetes. So like might need a ride. So I go and meet up with a ridge runner to pick up this through hiker to bring him to the park office. And then there is and then our fire alarm went off at our interpretive center building. So I go to the interpretive center. Then we actually had a water search at the beach, and that's really scary because there's lifeguards and there's a reported lost child. So we have to kind of kick into gear there. So then I was at the beach with that. So we had to clear the water for that. Then we reopened the water, and I remembered specifically it was 3:20 p.m. when we reopened the water, and then at 3:25 it started thundering, so we had to clear the water again. And then so like if you like, are you catching the theme here? Like this is just, there is no such thing as a typical day. Some days I might be at the computer all day because there's I oversee a budget and all sorts of stuff. But then this time of year, a lot of times just out and about, jumping from place to place. And then like there's a second park. So there's Stoke State Forest. So I have to try to get over there. So there's just no such thing as a typical day. And that's probably why I love it also.
Yeah, I love that.
You never know what the day's going to bring. Never, ever know.
That's awesome. There you go, Michael. There's your answer. No typical day. All right, here's our last question for you. What do you want people to know about NJ State Park, specifically High Point or Stokes? Like, what makes your park so special and so great?
That's a great question. I'll say they're the best in the State Park Service. I'll add Ringwood into the mix too. But what's really interesting is High Point and Stokes share a border, but they're really two very different places. And obviously what makes High Point the best, I would say, is the view, this amazing view from the highest point in New Jersey. And anyone and everyone needs to, at some point, experience that view and visit the monument. And there's, some great trails here too. And Stokes, and this because you run the trails there, just when you're in the forest at Stokes, I just feel like you're not in New Jersey. It's just very kind of this more of a New Yorky, Adirondack-y type feel, right? With the beautiful pines and hemlocks. I'm a big fan of hemlock trees, and Stokes, you have to experience the natural beauty of the Tillman's Ravine specifically is a beautiful area. the Blue Mountain Loop, which of course the Thunder Chicken took place on. So the trails at Stokes, 100%. It's not about the views at Stokes. It's just about experiencing that feeling when you're just kind of surrounded by these pines, and, the rhododendrons are going to be in bloom probably like now. And the streams running through. I just think the beauty of Stokes, cannot be, very difficult to match anywhere else. So that would be my answer.
I wholeheartedly agree. I remember the first time I was out there making the course for, the double squatch, and it was just the very beginning of the Brown Blaze Stony Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And when you got the cascading waterfalls on the side and the huge pine trees, I remember just stopping and thinking, like, this is so beautiful.
Like a quarter mile from the road, right? Anyone can walk just if you feel like you can't do it, you can do it, because it's a short walk and you're in the middle of it.
Right. And then I thought, like, that can't be topped. And when I did the Blue Mountain Loop for the first time, when you're on that section right next to the river and you're going through that big pine tree forest, all the runners said that was their favorite part. And it's like the pine is really like a carpet you're running on, minus all the roots that you can trip on. But it's just, so beautiful at Stokes. I think it's probably my favorite state park, I would have to say.
I love that, because I know Northern Green. I know you really enjoy Northern Green too. And Stokes, really, come visit us, everyone, because, we don't there's parking lots filling to capacity, at places like Wawayanda and at Mount Tammany, at Worthington. But there's a lot of parking to access the Blue Mountain Loop at Stokes and Tillman. So, Tillman's Ravine gets a little busy, but over on the other side, you're not going to get turned away. You're not going to not have a parking spot. So come check it out for sure.
I love it. Well, Rebecca, this has been Squatch-tastic, to say the least.
Squatch-tastic. I love it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I've said it to you before, you and Jessica Krugel, you guys are so easy to work with at the state parks. And I just appreciate that you really want to have events, and you make it easy to have these trail events. And from top down, you guys, the maintenance on the trails, the administrative side of hosting events, it really is a pleasure to say. I'm not just saying that because you're on the interview, but I really you make it so easy, and that's why we keep coming back to Stokes.
Love it. Thank you. And you're a pleasure to work with as well. So thank you so much. And quick fun fact, Jessica and I started together at Ringwood State Park. We both worked together there. So.
Oh, right. That's awesome.
Jess and I go way back too. Yeah.
I love that. I haven't seen her in so long, because we haven't been back to Wawayanda since, I don't even know when. It's been a long time.
Because the sweater run was canceled, right? Yeah.
Sweater run was canceled. So it was probably that previous year, I guess. And every time we're there, it's horrendous weather. So
you'll get back.
We will. So anyway, Rebecca, thank you so much again for joining us. If you want to find out more about NJ State Parks, where should people go, Rebecca? How can they learn more?
Our wonderful new and improved website. I'm going to give a shout out to Jimmy, because he might be watching, NJ Parks and Forests with an S.org. Great website. You can check out all the state parks. And there is a New Jersey State Parks Facebook page. There's also a High Point State Park Facebook page and a Stoke State Forest Facebook page. I have to be a little more engaging on the Stokes page. Are you
in charge of that?
I am. Yeah. I do the Facebooks too.
Wow.
I do the social medias for the parks. Jimmy, our social media guy, does the State Park Service one, but I do the High Point and Stokes one. So,
man, just another hat to add to your rack there.
Exactly. It's funny, and you know this because you operate your page, right? We get some of these public questions. It's like 3 a.m. Like someone's asking the question: is the lake open? There are times, because I never turn the alerts off on my phone. I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm seeing is the lake open? And if I don't answer it then, I'll forget. I just forget to answer it.
Right.
So sometimes I'm responding to the public, you know, at 3:00 in the morning. They're probably thinking like, wow, that's really great customer service. Well, no, it's just because like I'll completely forget by the time I wake up. So yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. All right, so you heard it here. You've got the website for NJ State Parks. Again, go check out Stokes first, and then you can head over to High Point.
Awesome.
Rebecca, thank you again. And you're listening, you want to catch up on our events for Sassquad Trail Running, just go to our website, sasquatchtrailrunning.com. We're on Facebook as Sassquad Trail Running and Instagram, Sassquad Trail Runners. And we will have this podcast episode up in the next week or so. You can find that anywhere podcasts are streaming. We're on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, all the good stuff. So you can pop it on when you're going for a run, a car ride, or just hanging out. So that wraps it up for us. So until we see you again, keep it squatchy.